Morning to you. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Steve and the Man on your TV, on your radio and online.
It's time to go through the papers now. And joining us this morning, political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield, and former Conservative advisor, Claire Pearsall. Lovely to see you both this morning. Thank you very much. What are we starting with, Kevin? The local elections. But this time, the Guardian's take on it. What do they say?
Well, I suppose unsurprisingly for the Guardian, they've gone on the... I mean, to be fair, it was the top story yesterday. It was as the day progressed, it got worse and worse for the Conservatives. And the first thing in the morning, it looked as though maybe they were going to do a little bit better than previously anticipated. But the more results came in, and then Scotland and Wales, the losses mounted up, and now we're looking at well over 400, which is deep into disaster zone, really.
Yes, the Guardian have chosen a good picture of Boris for the front, looking extremely worried.
Yeah.
I don't know how contextual that is, actually, but...
Yeah, well, he does play with his hair a lot.
Yeah.
He's a gift for the photographers, because there are lots of stock pictures of Boris Johnson looking anxious because he's got his head in his hands. But yeah, I mean, he is definitely going to come under more pressure, undoubtedly. There was one or two Tories broke ranks yesterday saying, no, this is a reflection on the Prime Minister, it's maybe a time to change direction. But thus far, no one with any heft has come out. But, you know, it seems to lurch from one crisis to the next. It's not Partygate, it's elections, it's the economy. So I just think it's interesting to keep an eye on it over the next couple of days to see if anyone comes out, you know.
Yeah, I mean, are there any rumblings? Because obviously, in the weeks leading up to the local elections, a lot of even Tory backbenchers said, you know, we'll hold fire for the moment until after the elections to see whether or not we call for Boris's resignation. What do you think they're thinking?
Well, they'll be taking soundings undoubtedly over the weekend. I mean, a lot of these MPs will have lost colleagues who were councillors, friends who were councillors, you know, they'll have lost their posts, and that's going to hurt, you know.
And they'll be worried about losing their own.
Absolutely, especially in the south, where the Lib Dems have made serious gains. You're looking at the Tory heartlands there. There's a lot of disquiet amongst Tory MPs. They think there's too much focus now on holding the Red Wall in the north and in the Midlands at the expense of the south. So they're coming under pressure from the Lib Dems. And you're right, they're thinking next election's only 2 years away. We've now got Lib Dem councillors in our patches. They're great local campaigners. I could lose my seat. Something has to crack.
Well, the Times, Claire, looking at the south, and so it's a key area for the Tories, but it is also a pretty key area for the Lib Dems.
It is, and this is what we find, is that people forget the Lib Dems are extremely good at local elections. So those Lib Dem facing seats for Conservatives are going to be really, really tricky. I saw it in Sevenoaks Town over the weekend. I appreciate this was a town council seat, but won comfortably by the Liberal Democrats. And you start to think, well, what happens when this broadens out and you go further down towards the south coast, across into Hampshire, into Wiltshire, and further into the southwest? And of course, those seats haven't been up this time round. And these are the Tory heartlands. And colleagues are now thinking, are we being forgotten? Are we being left alone at the expense of the Red Wall seats? All the attention is going up there, all the money for levelling up is going up there. What about us? You know, we are struggling with the cost of living, prices are higher, commuting is higher, and there is a lot of unrest. And I've heard conversations going on between members of Parliament. They're all looking at what groupings they have. London MPs are certainly looking, the 19 of those, looking to sort of get together and think, what do we do here? Because this is really bad. And one of those that did make some noise yesterday was David Simmons, who is a 2019 intake. So we're not seeing it's the old guard. These are the new MPs coming out saying, hang on a minute, something isn't right.
You see, that's interesting. When it's the 2019 lot, that really does mean PM's got something to worry about.
Absolutely does, because the vast majority of them owe their seats to the Prime Minister, so there is a certain amount of loyalty, but that can only last for so long. They've given their loyalty and they've been hit time after time with more accusations of not being honest, of Partygate, of trying to save Owen Paterson, and then we had sort of, tractor porn in the chamber. It just seems it's one thing after another. And the 2019ers are now looking at it saying, well, hold on, this is my career.
Except they've got to have an electable leader, though, in 2 years' time. If it's not Boris, who is it?
Well, there is your problem. We have gone from the sort of statesman-like Theresa May chief executive role to the top personality that is Boris Johnson, and it's hard to see what comes next. You kind of need this almost sort of Frankenstein monster approach to politics to bring in all
piece together bits from all of them.
Absolutely, and that's the real problem with us, is there isn't a successor naturally coming out in the wings.
I mean, listening to all of that, Kevin, the Labour Party just would say, great, this is all great, we've done quite well in the local elections, there's all this chaos in the Conservative Party, until they start looking at the papers this morning. You've picked the Daily Mail on this, it's on the Sun as well. Beergate, or is it going to turn into Currygate? It's well, I mean, this is actually looking pretty serious for Keir Starmer.
It is, and it's been a textbook example, I think, of how not to deal with a political crisis. You know, Labour have let this run out of control, really. I mean, initially it looked like it was a pretty minor story. Durham Constabulary had looked at it and had said no case to answer, but the Mail and the Sun, you've got to say, have been very good at just sort of drip feed of little stories, and Labour have not been able to give clear answers on it. And now, yesterday, perfect timing, just as you say, Keir Starmer should have been enjoying a bit of success. They announced that they're actually going to reinvestigate. They've opened it up again, and yeah, I mean, potentially this could be fatal for Keir Starmer. I think if he were
because he made such a big deal out of Boris.
Yeah, which was understandable. You know, he saw a political opportunity there. The Prime Minister being fined, Prime Minister being investigated. He called for him to resign.
Even
at that
under
stage.
Investigation.
Exactly.
Well, now Keir Starmer himself is under investigation.
Yeah.
Does that really mean morally he should resign?
Well, I think it becomes really sticky for him if he's found to have broken the COVID rules, if that's what the police turn around and say. Now, apparently Durham Constabulary have said that they don't issue fixed penalty notices retrospectively. However, that doesn't mean to say that they can't
That's
rule
what
that
the Met said.
Well, yeah, true, but it also means that, you know, even if I think it's fatal for him, to be honest with you, if he's found to have broken the rules, given, you know, as you say,
so we've
the
got
position that he took.
Two main political parties with dodgy leaders, have we?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, what the heck happens next?
And I think this is largely the problem, is that there is no real opposition currently, so the Conservatives are quite lucky in that respect. But it's the excuse after excuse that Starmer has used, not knowing that Angela Rayner was there and then finally admitting that perhaps she was. Now, she's quite a larger-than-life character. I think you would notice her in a room.
Yeah.
And especially if she's your deputy leader, then you would definitely notice her.
I think so.
The
also,
sort of hypocrisy of
the Sun's claiming that Keir Starmer says he only ordered a takeaway, which cost 200 quid, because no pubs were open. In fact, more than 10 restaurants or pubs were serving food within a 15-minute walk of the hall.
That's right, and they were serving food outside.
Yeah.
So this was, you know, what was it, a curry for 30?
Yeah.
That's not just for one person sitting on their own in an office, or perhaps, you know, 6 people, as we were all allowed to go and sit outside with. So really, I don't think he's got any excuse, and it's quite interesting that he's falling apart over the very things that he should be good at as a lawyer. He is putting all these things out there, so to say, no, we abided by the rules, we did this, but it's quite easy to unpick, to go back to look at the guidance, and then have delivery drivers corroborate the story as well. So, you know, he's really not so great as a lawyer in that respect.
Although it is quite interesting, where the worst come to the worst for Keir Starmer and he had to resign, that throws it all back on the Prime Minister again. It's like, well, hang on a minute, he's done the decent thing and resigned. Why haven't you?
Oh, interesting.
So, you know, he could almost sort of blow up Boris Johnson by blowing up himself.
Well, like I say, maybe the two men should shake hands over it and agree to forget it.
But it's politics.
It's politics.
It really doesn't work like that now.
Can we move on to Northern Ireland? Because I find Northern Ireland, what could be happening there, absolutely amazing. Who would have thought Sinn Féin could be the party with the most seats?
It is absolutely fascinating, and I profess not to know very much about Northern Ireland politics. It's extremely complicated. But to have Sinn Féin coming out with 29% of first preference votes on the first day is enormous. I don't think any of us saw that kind of victory happening on day one. Normally they would pick up second and third preference votes as we went along. The DUP currently on sort of 21% of first preferences. And you do wonder where it's going to go. Sinn Féin look to be the largest party. And what does that mean then for Northern Ireland Protocol, for a united Ireland, which is particularly what they want?
Well, they're going to push for a referendum on that?
Absolutely they are, and it's really difficult to see how that is going to go with the rest of the country. I'm not convinced that it's a calm, nice influence to have. I think this is going to cause some real tensions and the potential of more elections coming up further down the line when everybody starts to pick up their beach towels and move off, because it is so complicated, it is so ingrained in them to have Northern Ireland as its own entity that I think to blow that up with a referendum and potentially make it to a united Ireland.
I was going to say, if it's the bottom line thing, is if it's not politically driven, but you sort of view it purely as the will of the people. You know, it's a golden rule, isn't it? If more than half the population who voted wanted to unite with Ireland, well then, so be it, would have to be the political...
But would the referendum only be in Northern Ireland, or would it be across North and South?
That's the question, because if you're looking to unite, you would have to ask both sides.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it becomes really quite complicated. And I'm not sure Sinn Féin have been quite so transparent in their campaigning. When you look at what they've done, it's all been very local issues, it's cost of living, it's potholes, it's all of the things that local elections should be around. And then just in the background, there's United Ireland. So I wonder the transparency of it. But it is very interesting that you would have to ask the South.
Yeah, I think if everyone knows where obviously Sinn Féin are coming from in terms of a united Ireland, but they've been really savvy. You know, they've pursued a strategy similar to the SNP in Scotland when they first came to power. You know, it's like keep the constitutional question in the background, focus on being a competent government, cost of living crisis, bread and butter issues. I don't think anyone can be in any doubt if they're voting Sinn Féin exactly where Sinn Féin stand on the constitution. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be fascinating. I mean, I think it's going to be very difficult for them to form an executive. Obviously, under the terms of the Good Friday Agreement, there needs to be a coalition government. It can't be one party. It needs to be both sides.
Well, isn't it the DUP saying no, they don't really want to work with Sinn Féin?
Well, that's the thing. So they want the Northern Ireland Protocol. Not want to get too technical here, but they want to get that ripped up or reformed. And unless that happens, they're not going to go into coalition.
I mean, we are really looking at something that could change the political geography, if nothing else, of Ireland.
It is. It will cause Westminster a huge amount of problem, especially with the Northern Ireland Protocol being ripped up, which is everything that the campaign for Brexit has been about, and it's tore the Conservative Party apart. So I think there's going to be some real tensions then between Stormont and Westminster.
And it's not something that Boris Johnson has shown the least bit of interest in, really, of Irish politics. No. I think he's going to have to get a crash course very soon.
If you're watching in Northern Ireland today, get in touch. It would be fascinating to get your views, I think, because...
We're watching Southern Ireland too.
Well, yeah. I mean, because for the rest of us, as we were saying, Northern Irish politics is very complicated. You know, it's got so many nuances to it that the rest of us don't quite get at times, so it'd be fascinating to get your perspective on it. Thank you both. Kevin, Sale, we'll see you a little bit later on.
Thank you.